Let's talk about the Electoral College, or the system that we use to select the President of the United States. And we will answer the age-old question of how does one win the popular vote, but lose the Electoral College and not become president? Well, first of all, the popular vote is the most votes nationally. Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump, 2016. We would just tally up who got the most votes. That was Hillary Clinton. But the popular vote doesn't mean anything. We do not use a system that just counts who got the most votes in the nation. We instead use an electoral college. It is not a national system, it is a state-by-state points system. Those points that you see for each state is based on the population of the state. If more people live in your state, you should have more representation in selecting the president, and so you receive more points. California, a heavily populated state. Now, again, it's not based necessarily on geography, although a bigger state can fill more people. It's based on the amount of people in that state. If you have more people, you deserve more representation, you receive more votes or points in the Electoral College system. 55 for California, 38 for Texas back in 2016. 20 for Pennsylvania, not bad. 29 for New York. More people in your state, more points. Montana, although it is a large geographical state, not many people, and we're not counting livestock. And so Montana up there, the one that has a face, only 3 points. It's based on people. Now, it is a state-by-state race. So if you get the most votes in that state, you take all the points for that state. Regardless, if you win that state by 3 million and you get 70% of the vote in that state, you get the points of that state. If you win that state election by 1 vote, you get all the points. And even if you tallied up millions and millions of votes, but still lost by 1, well, then you get nothing. You can bank a lot of votes in a state, but if you don't get all the votes of that state, if you do not get the majority in that state, you get 0. Whoever gets the most votes in Texas, regardless of the difference between the winner and loser, you can win as many as you want, win by as many votes as you want, or in a slim margin of just 100 or 1,000. You get all the points of that state. That's how the Electoral College works. The popular vote versus the Electoral College. In 2016, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, meaning nationwide, she received more votes. But when we went state by state and did all the state battles, Trump won the state-by-state battles. He accumulated the points. He was selected president through the Electoral College system. Let's break down exactly how this works. How one can win the popular vote, meaning they get the most votes nationally, and yet lose the Electoral College and not become president. In 2016, nationally, or the popular vote, gave Trump 62.9 million, almost 63 million votes. You calculate all the votes across all the states, that's what you get. Hillary Clinton earned 65.8 million, so almost 3 million votes. When all things were said and done, and we tallied everything up, she had received more votes from Americans than Trump. But as we know, Trump was elected president because of the Electoral College system. We'll show you specifically how this worked in 2016. California, 55 points. But let's take the 55 points, set that aside. That doesn't matter. That's Electoral College. We're talking popular vote right now. And in California, Hillary Clinton scored 8.75 million votes. Donald Trump scored 4.4. That's a difference of 4.3 million votes. So she won California easily. She came out with a 4.3 million vote advantage. But that means nothing. It's all about the points. Cool, you got 4.3 million more votes. In our Electoral College system, you just needed to get one more vote. Those 4.3 or those 4,299,999 votes really didn't matter. Those just didn't matter. All you needed was one more vote and you got the points. But regardless, for statistical purposes, we can say that she had 4.3 million more Americans choose her than him. We look at Michigan and we compare that race. Hillary Clinton got 2.268 million votes. Donald Trump got 2.279 million votes. So a much closer margin of difference. She easily won the blowout in California, banked a bunch of votes. He slimly wins. She got all the California points. He gets all of the Michigan points. And when we just look at these two states compared, at the end, she came out with 4.3 million in the bank, popular nationally. He's only got 11,000. Huge difference. Both are getting points. She's banking a bunch of votes that just don't seem to matter. She'll say, this is not fair. More people are voting for me. I'm getting more votes. The people are speaking. He'll say, well, that's not the system we have. The system that we have doesn't care if you win blowouts. The system doesn't care if you get more votes nationally. The system cares about going to individual states, campaigning in individual states, winning over the people of individual states all throughout the nation and building up points, rather than going to large population centers and banking a ton of votes. Going to the coasts and banking up tons of votes. It's about individual states, representing everyone. At the end of the day, she won by 3 million votes, though, she says. Look, I understand your argument. But at the end of the day, I have 3 million more votes than you. 3 million more Americans chose me over you. Why should I not be president? Well, our system is a lot like sports in a way. What matters in professional sports? Wins and losses. It doesn't matter how much you win a game by. And the Kansas City Chiefs are a perfect example of this. Super Bowl champions in 2023, you can see their results. Sure, they had some blowout wins, but many of their wins were close. And if we were to calculate how many points they won games by at the end of the year, that's great. You can be the best team ever and win a bunch of blowouts. You can win by 20 points in half of your games and really build up a big margin of difference between points scored and points lost. But as you know and I know, and for the people following that don't follow sports, like, what do you mean margin of difference, points allowed? Exactly. No one cares at the end of the season how many points you scored and how many points you allowed and what the difference between is. No one cares if you ran up the score in sports. No one cares if you got 4 million more votes. It's about wins and losses. And the Chiefs didn't often run up the score. They didn't often win big, but they won by 3 points, by 4 points, by 2 points. They got the wins, and in the end, they won the Super Bowl. That is our system. That is the Electoral College. It's not about running up the score. It's not about who scores the most points. It's about the individual games, the individual head-to-heads, and the state. And still people would say, well, it still isn't fair. Why do you get to decide? Now, more importantly, one of the attacks on the Electoral College in modern times is the attack on the swing states. This year, in 2024, we're looking at Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, maybe not so much North Carolina, but we'll consider it. Why do you get to be so important? Why do you get all the attention of the candidates? Why do we get ignored? And that's a good question from California. We do ignore California. Everyone knows California's going to vote for the Democrat. We ignore it. There's no media attention. There's no political attention. Everyone cares about the swing states. All the money is spent in the swing states. All the focus is on the swing states. It is all that we talk about. And poor California gets neglected. But it's more than that. Where do the candidates go? If you watch them each day, their attention, their focus is on Georgia, They're flying to Michigan. They're not going to California. They're not paying attention to California. Everyone knows which way California is going to go. And the people of California then are kind of neglected during these campaign cycles. And it's more than just like, oh, too bad, no one's paying attention to you. These candidates want to win the election. They need to win over voters. And so often they'll make promises to the specific swing states, to the pivotal states in this electoral college system. They receive more attention, they may receive more benefits, and states like California, who are not going to change, which will always vote for the Democrats seemingly, they're not going to get any promises. These candidates are not going to make new laws or provide government subsidies to win over the voters of California, because they know the points are already going to the Democrats. The Democrats know it, so they don't have to do anything. The Republicans know they can't win it, so they know they don't have to make any promises. Whereas all the freebies, the gimmies, Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, come on up. We need your vote. We're going to pass bills and laws and regulations that benefit you. Gimme. Tax breaks, subsidies to the swing states. So that is an argument for the popular vote. Now, it's not like the popular vote is the solution, because there are trade-offs. If this were to be abandoned and we got rid of the Electoral College and these swing states weren't as pivotal and it went straight to a raw, total, a national vote, then we would have similar situations where the candidates would neglect Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia, and they would fly to large population centers, metropolises, giant cities, and the candidates would then ignore rural America. They would ignore many of the states. They would spend all their time making promises to the people living in cities, in urban areas where populations are dense, where they can get the most bang for their buck with their campaign dollars. So if you go popular vote, then you're going to create a system that heavily favors cities. If we stick with the Electoral College, those cities, urban areas, metropolitan centers become less important, and the states throughout the nation thus become more significant. There are trade-offs. You have to decide. You break one system, you're not necessarily going to make it any better. We continue to look at this system. We look at California. Now, in defense of the Electoral College, 61% of the vote in California went Democrat, 31% went Republican. You could make a strong argument that this is not a very diverse state. It has one strongly held view. California may not be the best representation of America because it is not as diverse. It is more homogeneous in terms of political views. Whereas we look at Michigan, 50% went Democrat, 50% went Republican. At least when we compare the two, we would make the argument that Michigan is a much more diverse state in terms of political philosophy, in view of government. It's more half and half, which then the argument would be, who is the better representation of the United States? A state that is largely Democrat, that is largely homogeneous in their political views, or a state like Michigan where we have a 50-50 split? And it is more heterodox, it is more diverse. So if we decide supposedly that Michigan is the better representation, then maybe they should have more of a say in selecting the President of the United States. And that's what we get with the Electoral College. Now let's talk about a chaos scenario in 2024. I hope this doesn't happen, but this is a possibility. The Democrats, if they lose the popular vote, can complain, or if they win the popular vote and lose the Electoral College and do not get the president once again, like a repeat of 2016 with Hillary Clinton, or also like a repeat of 2000 with Al Gore, getting more votes but not becoming president. Not fair. We got more votes. We got to change the system. So the chaos scenario in 2024 post-election could be this. Hopefully not. But this is a scenario that needs to be discussed and thought about. They have a lot of money. Remember, they have $1 billion that they spent within 3 months. They got the cash. They can use that cash over the next couple months following the election to fund grassroots organizations, fund Democrat organizations, put the money in the pockets of these organizations and the people and get people out to protest, to be civilly disobedient. That is the polite way of saying it. The more less generous and charitable way of saying what is really happening with the democratic funding of these grassroots organizations is that it is causing not just civil disobedience, but it's causing civil unrest. Riots in the street, possibly, chaos, protests, even if they are peaceful, that slow down the economy, that disrupt the economy, that thus disrupt the nation. This is unrest. This is often the playbook of a color revolution, where money is given to organizations quote unquote protest. We thus have unrest in the streets, economic challenges, government instability, and thus that government dealing with the unrest or perceived unrest or economic slowdown, that government then has to take action and make a change. That change thus would be removing the Electoral College and going towards a popular vote. That would be your chaos scenario. That is the playbook of fund the grassroots, get the unrest, pressure, cause destability, and then you can remove the Electoral College once and for all. Now, the argument against that is you can't just get rid of the Electoral College. It is in the Constitution. You have to change the Constitution. So as much as they want to fund, as much unrest that happens, this just doesn't do anything. You have to literally go through the process explained in the Constitution of amending the Constitution, which is a hard deal. Only 27 times has it actually worked. Thousands and thousands of attempts over the last 200 plus years have failed to amend the Constitution. Very, very hard process to do. But at the same time, one would argue that there have been plenty of times over the last 4 years where the Constitution has been completely ignored. What was once unthinkable in current times with executive orders by Joe Biden, the Constitution has been out and out blatantly ignored, and executive orders and laws have been passed that violate the Constitution and yet went forward. Could an executive order or a law somehow curb the Electoral College? That seems exaggerated, but as we have all known, we have seen a lot of exaggerated, unbelievable things happen over the last 4 years that we would have never imagined. So from that lens, from that perspective, it's not hard to see that the Electoral College somehow is removed or mitigated or changed without actually changing the Constitution. That's your chaos scenario. Hopefully we don't get to that. Hopefully these things never happen. But there you have it. That's how you win the popular vote and lose the Electoral College. Those are some of the defenses and criticisms of the Electoral College and the popular vote. Have a good one.